The United States Supreme Court has temporarily reinstated a rule allowing an abortion pill to be prescribed through telemedicine and dispensed through the mail, lifting a judicial ban that narrowed access to the medication nationwide. Justice Samuel Alito issued an interim order on Monday, pausing for 1 week a decision by the New Orleans-based 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to reimpose an older federal rule requiring an in-person clinician visit to receive mifepristone.
A car has been driven into a crowd in the German city of Leipzig, killing at least 2 people. Police said the driver had been arrested and was no longer considered a threat, but offered no additional details. Emergency services declared a mass casualty incident.
Nearly a week after the makers of the popular web server management software cPanel and web host manager WHM alerted users of a critical flaw in its software, hackers are still targeting thousands of websites that use the vulnerable software. As of Monday, there are more than 550,000 potentially vulnerable servers running cPanel, a number that has remained stable for days. And there are now around 2,000 cPanel instances likely compromised, down from around 44,000 on Thursday. These statistics are published by Shadow Server, a non-profit organisation that scans and monitors the internet for cyber attacks.
Following a directive from the Board of Revenue Punjab, district administrations across the province have started revising property valuation rates. Sources told Pro-Pakistani that the Prime Minister has been briefed that reducing tax-related friction in the property sector could help attract investors from the United Arab Emirates and other Gulf countries.
Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar was informed by the Petroleum Ministry on Monday that the country has sufficient reserves of Pehel products till the 3rd week of June. The information was conveyed to the Deputy Premier during a high-level meeting to review the country's petroleum, oil and lubricants stock position. South Waziristan. An attempted suicide attack on a security forces post near Azam Warsak Bazar in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, South Waziristan area was foiled on Monday evening, officials said. According to security sources, the attacker attempted to target the army post using an explosive-laden coach. However, due to timely action by Pakistan Army personnel, the vehicle was destroyed before reaching its target.
Rudy Giuliani, the former New York City mayor and longtime champion of President Donald Trump, is recovering from pneumonia and is now breathing on his own, according to his spokesman. In a statement on X, spokesman Ted Goodman said that Giuliani has had restrictive airway disease since the 9/11 terror attacks that diminished his ability to fight off pneumonia.
Austria has expelled 3 Russian diplomats, accusing them of spying. The diplomats, who have already left the country, used a forest of antennas installed on the roofs of diplomatic buildings to gather information, Foreign Minister Beat Meinl-Reisinger said.
Britney Spears will avoid jail time after she agreed to plead guilty to a lesser charge following her arrest on suspicion of driving under the influence. A lawyer for the 44-year-old appeared in court on Monday and pleaded guilty to reckless driving involving drugs or alcohol. Spears was not required to attend the hearing.
2 people have died and several were injured after a car drove into a crowd in the eastern German city of Leipzig on Monday afternoon. Local authorities said Mayor Burkhard Jung said the suspected perpetrator was apprehended, adding that authorities were not yet clear on the motivation.
At least 1 person has been killed after a car struck several people in the eastern German city of Leipzig, local authorities said Monday. 2 other people were severely injured and have been taken to hospital, while 20 more have been affected, according to Axel Schuh, the head of Leipzig's fire brigade.
And GameStop made an unsolicited $56 BN bid to acquire e-commerce giant eBay, a company with a market value nearly 4 times higher. As the video game retailer seeks to boost profitability, eBay confirmed the offer on Monday and said that there had been no prior discussion or outreach with GameStop before receiving the offer.
Is the rise of prediction markets unstoppable? Companies like Polymarket and Kalshi have boomed, and so have the controversies that surround them. US senators are now banned from using such sites, and a US soldier has been charged over bets placed on the abduction of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. How is it already changing our reality? In this episode, a long-running border dispute between Nepal and India has flared up after New Delhi announced the resumption of a religious pilgrimage through a contested Himalayan pass. Kathmandu's Ministry of Foreign Affairs lodged a protest against India on Sunday, criticising New Delhi for resuming the pilgrimage. The Lipulek Pass, which sits where Nepal meets India and Tibet is claimed by Nepal based on the 1816 Treaty of Sugauli, which it entered into with India's British colonial rulers to define its western border.
2 days before the Elon Musk versus OpenAI trial began last week, Musk texted the model maker's president and co-founder Greg Brockman. Musk suggested to Brockman that OpenAI settle the suit. After Brockman replied by suggesting both sides drop their suits, the exchange went off the rails, with Musk responding, "By the end of this week, you and Sam will be the most hated men in America. If you insist, so it will be."
Brett Taylor's AI startup Sierra is raising a $950 million funding round led by Tiger Global and GV, the company announced Monday, pushing its post-money valuation above $15 billion. The raise gives Sierra more than $1 billion to work with, capital the company says it will use to become the global standard for AI-powered customer experiences. Like a lot of AI companies, Sierra has, smartly, been very proactive in touting its own growth in a crowded market. The company says it started with just 4 design partners a couple of years ago. Today it claims to have more than 40% of the Fortune 50 as customers, and says the agents running on its platform are handling billions of interactions, from refinancing mortgages to processing insurance claims, managing returns, and powering non-profit fundraising campaigns. When do we take AI doomers seriously? That's a key subtext of Elon Musk's attempt to shut down OpenAI's for-profit AI business. His attorneys argue that the organization was set up as a charity focused on AI safety and lost its way in pursuit of lucre. To prove that, they cite old emails and statements from the organization's founders about the need for a public-spirited counterweight to Google DeepMind.
And fire broke out at a major UAE oil industry zone on Monday after a drone attack originating from Iran, the authorities said, and as the Gulf states military separately intercepted 3 Iranian missiles over its waters and a 4th crashed into the sea. Civil defense teams were deployed immediately to contain the blaze at the Fujairah oil industry zone, the Fujairah media office said in a statement, adding that 3 Indian citizens were moderately injured in the attack and taken to the hospital. And is the rise of prediction markets unstoppable? Companies like Polymarket and Kalshi have boomed, and so have the controversies that surround them. United States senators are now banned from using such sites, and a US soldier has been charged over bets placed on the abduction of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. How is it already changing our reality? In this episode,
For the past 3 years, reports of wartime atrocities and dire humanitarian crises have been making the headlines from Sudan. Now, satellite imagery shows the extent of the damage to the country's agriculture and industrial sectors. An Al Jazeera digital investigation using Sentinel-2 satellite imagery and the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, NDVI, reveals the devastating toll of the war on Sudan's largest irrigated farming projects in the central states of Jazeera, Sennar and Khartoum. The United Arab Emirates has said its air defenses are engaging with missile attacks and incoming drones from Iran. The UAE Ministry of Defense said late on Monday afternoon that it was intercepting ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones across the country.
And United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has accused China of funding the largest state sponsor of terrorism, referring to Iran, saying that Beijing should help Washington in efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Bessent's blunt criticism of China's relations with Iran on Monday comes ahead of US President Donald Trump's expected visit to Beijing next week, where he is set to meet with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. And the United States has transferred 22 crew members from the Iranian container ship, the Tuska, to Pakistan in what Islamabad describes as a confidence-building measure. During tension in the Strait of Hormuz, U.S. Central Command spokesman Captain Tim Hawkins said the crew had been handed over for repatriation. Pakistan's foreign ministry confirmed the transfer, saying the sailors would be returned to Iranian authorities.
A new project called Acorn has launched a way for organisations and creators to build their own online communities as an alternative to centralised social media platforms like Instagram, X and Threads. It uses the same underlying technology that powers the decentralised social media app Bluesky, allowing communities to build their own homepages, create starter packs for new members and customise feeds and moderation tools. Acorn's platform hails from Blacksky, a company building its own decentralised social media toolkit around the AT protocol. The AT protocol was developed by Bluesky's team and is used by it and other open social apps like Flashes, Spark, Skylight, Surf, Streamplace, Leaflet and more. On Monday, Anthropic announced a joint venture focusing on deploying enterprise AI services. Blackstone, Hellman and Friedman and Goldman Sachs will be founding partners in the new venture, which is backed by a group of VCs, hedge funds and private equity firms, including Apollo Global Management, General Atlantic, Geek Leonard Green and Sequoia Capital. The Wall Street Journal, which first reported news of the partnership, reported the new venture was valued at $1. $5 billion, which includes a $300 million commitment each from Anthropic, Blackstone and Hellman and Friedman.
And a tiny little known world beyond Pluto appears to have an atmosphere, Japanese astronomers said on Monday, defying what had been thought possible for icy objects in our cosmic backyard. If confirmed, the roughly 500-kilometre wide rock would become just the second world past Neptune in our solar system to host an atmosphere, after only Pluto itself.
Islamabad. PTI accused the government Monday of driving Pakistan into an unprecedented economic and governance crisis that has crushed the common man. In a statement, PTI's Information Secretary Sheikh Waqas Akram stated that the stability claimed by the government was nothing but a cruel joke on 250 million Pakistanis. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party is set to win 2 of 4 crucial state elections, expand its influence and weaken its key rival halfway into his third term in office. Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party BJP was expected to return to power in the eastern state of Assam for the third straight term and was ahead in West Bengal, based on counting trends on the Election Commission website on Monday.
Bengaluru, India, in the sultry August heat of 2007, India's government under Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was sweating over the future of negotiations with the United States over a landmark nuclear deal. The proposed agreement aimed to ease access to nuclear fuel and technology in exchange for greater international scrutiny of India's facilities. The problem: India's communists, suspicious of the US, were opposed to the deal, and they were India's kingmakers.